In terms of Sternberg's triangle of love, and I was in the midst of explaining this, just a review for you. Sternberg said that there are three key components to love, and that is intimacy, passion, and commitment. So we were going through each one of these triangles. Let's just start off with liking. I did romantic love already. Liking is like a really good friend of yours that you have. You really like them. But we can also say that there's a form of love that's there because it's intimacy. You're sharing your thoughts and maybe your feelings with this other person, a really, really good friend of yours. And one, according to Sternberg, you say, yeah, I love this person because you have that intimacy that's there. Fictitious love would be commitment and passion. There's not a lot of getting to know the person, but you're passionate about them. Sometimes you see this as topsy-turvy love. You know, when you have arguments, you really have these passionate arguments that's there, okay? But after the arguments, you really make up for it because you're very passionate about it. But you really don't know the person very much. I think if we go to the next one, infatuation, which is all about passion, that's when you're in lust, probably, rather than in love. I think sometimes if you start off with the passion with somebody, you're intensely sexually passionate about them. Sometimes then you make a commitment, but you never get to what? Really know them very well. Then that's that fictitious love that he talks about there. There's a commitment there, there's a passion, but you really don't know them very, very well. Okay, and that's why you call it like a topsy-turvy. It's kind of up and down a lot. Companionate love, there's commitment and intimacy, but there's no passion. And you can say, well, how can you get into a love relationship that way if there's no passion? Well, this might be a really, really good friend of yours, a lifelong friend of yours. You what? You think about them, you share information with them, and you're committed to them. You'll do anything for them. Or it could be the classic romantic relationship where you start off maybe infatuated with somebody, get passionate first, or you start off just with liking, just with intimacy. Then if you have intimacy, you add passion to it or you add commitment to it. But then as the marriage goes along, and you may also hit consummate love, what happens? You may lose the passion that's there in the relationship. I'm not saying that's right, but that's pretty common. That happens a lot. It doesn't mean you can't get it back. Right? Recognize it doesn't mean you can't get it back, but that does happen. Particularly in relationships where you've been married for a while and you have work and you have children, and sometimes you lose that passion for each other. Empty love would be no intimacy, no passion, you just have the commitment. You've been married for 50 years, it's like whatever. Okay? And you are just committed, that's all there is to it. You don't share, you don't talk anymore, but maybe you were raised with the attitude of, we don't get divorced. Okay? We're just going to be together. We're just committed. And then the last one, which I wish we all could have, is consummate love. It's a little bit of everything. It's the intimacy, it's the commitment, it's the passion that's there. We would hope that all marriages would be like this all the time. But the research says they're not. Okay? So basically, in marriages, people endure. Okay? You get through it, and you recognize that there are sometimes you may lose the passion. But you hang in there, and you get it back. Sometimes you drift away from each other, and you're no longer talking as much. You may not like them as much anymore, but you still have the commitment and the passion that's there, and then you eventually start talking, and they become your friend again that's there. I don't think you can go back to romantic love without the commitment. I think in order for long-term marriages to work, you always have to have the commitment that's there to each other. Okay? But you see in terms of long-term marriages that people may flow through different parts of this love. Also, you might be able to define your relationship and where you are at just now based on these different triangles that are there. If we look at relationships as well, and we look at relationships that work, what we find is relationships work, okay, that people who stay together the longest, they usually start with liking first, okay? You get to know somebody first and who they are. Most relationships start with passion first. right? Infatuation, you really like, this person's hot, I really want to be with them. This is really great, okay? But those eventually die out. Okay, how do you know if you're really in love with somebody or just infatuated with them or in lust with them? Really, the answer is time. Time will let you know that. After a while, the passion kind of dies off. So a lot of long-term relationships start with maybe the liking. They add the passion to it in terms of romantic love. If you start off with passion, that's great, but hopefully that also connects with intimacy, that we get to know each other, sharing what you think and feel. You may add the third component of commitment to it. You may lose the intimacy, but then gain it back. Those are the long-term relationships that work. In regards to divorce rates, the U.S. has very high divorce rates, don't we? Sorry, but we really do. We have very, very high divorce rates, some of the highest divorce rates really in the world. So what is it? Okay, well, I think sometimes people are very infatuated, not with the other person, but with themselves. And a lot of times they don't know how to share and give, because relationships take a lot of sharing and giving that's there. When we look at divorce rates, we look at a trimodal distribution. What that means, there's 3 different times in a marriage that divorce rates begin to spike. One is within the first 3 years, okay? That's pretty quick, isn't it? The first 3 years. One, I think sometimes people get married in the passion stage, and they really don't get to know the person. And they're not really ready emotionally or socially to be committed to somebody else. They go through the ceremony of marriage, but they really don't have the thought of what it takes to be committed to another person. One of the biggest problems that people have when they're first married, okay, is what's called the power dimension, is who's in charge of the relationship. And you may seem like, well, that's ridiculous. We both are. No, that doesn't happen. Well, a lot of times when you're in a relationship, people kind of vie for influence over each other. And sometimes you get married to somebody and all of a sudden they're telling you how to dress, what to eat, where you're going to go. And what we find is that couples have arguments about 3 different things, mostly. One is money. When you're living with somebody, yeah, sometimes your incomes are combined together. You may have separate incomes or checkbooks and things like that and accounts, but sooner or later you need to make decisions about what we're going to buy, okay? And so couples have a hard time with the power dimension about who's going to spend what, when are we going to spend it, and do you have the right to do that? Okay. The second thing is basically about religion and children, okay? Particularly if you have children during these early years, about how to raise them, what's important. If you're not comfortable with yourself and feel good about yourself, when you get hooked up with somebody, okay, and now you have 2 people in a relationship, you need to be able to work together and feel good about the other person and develop a relationship, okay, the consummate love that's there. Too many times people stay within themselves and don't know how to share or become too dependent. Once you add another person to your family, which is a child, it changes the dynamics. Mom and dad together, add a child, now it's mom and child, mom, dad, child, and changes all the dynamics. And what it really changes is how much time can you give to the other person. And that's where selfishness comes in. Sometimes we get jealous of the time our spouses spend with the children. That's called being emotionally immature, okay? And that's why you have to be emotionally mature. And the third thing that couples argue about, and this may seem ridiculous, is sex, okay? Where, when, how, hopefully not with who, okay? But where, when, and how. You may think that's ridiculous, but it really isn't. And it's a bargaining that's there. I don't, you do, I don't, you do, but when you do, I don't. And sometimes there's a lot of compromises that go on with that. Again, that may sound ridiculous to a lot of you, but that's a part that couples argue about, and it also fits into the power dimension. Okay? I want it, you don't, well, you better. Okay? And that's what? An unequal fairness and power that's there. So in the first 3 years, you have to be able to figure out, okay, how you're going to share this power, this influence, this dominance, this decision-making that goes on that's there. And a lot of couples fail at that, therefore they're divorced. Another time that it spikes in terms of divorces is when children show up, okay? Whether that's in the first 3 years or 4 or 5 years down the line. Most people tell you don't have children right away after you're married, okay? Make sure you develop a nice foundation, you know how to work with each other, then you add a child to the dimensions that's there. I know that's ideal. It doesn't always work that way, okay? But that's an interesting point that's there. All right, so once children come in, sometimes divorce rates begin to spike because couples can't handle that. And then the other one is when children leave. You find that there are more divorces when children leave as well. The first 3 years, when children arrive, and when children leave. A couple of different things. One of the spouses has already decided they wanted to leave, but they decide, I'm going to stay for the sake of the children, and then when the children leave, then I'm going to get a divorce. You hear that quite a bit. The other part is, remember, there's a couple that's together. You form a good relationship. You add children. You better make sure that relationship stays sound, because what happens to a lot of couples, once the children leave, if they didn't make sure they had a relationship with each other, what happens when the children leave, their whole relationship was based on the children. The children are gone, and you have a husband and wife sitting across from each other going, oh, hi, who are you anyway? Have you heard from the kids yet? I'm not sure. Huh. They have nothing going on between them because their whole life was spent for the children's sake. Children are now gone, okay, and all of a sudden they have to redevelop their relationship, okay? What happens? They don't, so divorce rates spike at those times as well. So we see a trimodal distribution that's there. Okay, so marriages are not easy in this complex world that we have, but they fluctuate through these different triangles of love, and the real part is the commitment part that's there. Okay, I'm committed to make things work even when they're not working. Let's go back and try to make this work. I'm committed not to hurt you intentionally. Okay, I'll probably hurt you unintentionally, I hope. I hope no one hurts someone intentionally, but sometimes you live with somebody, you clash. So you hurt them unintentionally, but then you work it through. Okay? So there's obviously many, many books written on all this stuff that's there. So triangles of love and all about marriage. Let's switch a little bit and let's talk about social roles. I'm about to cover 3 different sections in this chapter about social roles and obedience. And these are the studies I'm going to tell you about. And then when I ask you, would you do this? Most of you would say no, but the research says yes, you would. Did you hear what I said? That I'm going to ask you, would you do this? And most of you would say no, but the research says you would. Why? Because groups influence us. Your friends, your peers, media, modeling, all these different things have a greater influence on us than we want to admit. The first aspect of this is called social roles. What roles do you play in society? Are you a parent? Are you a child? Are you an employer? Are you an employee? Are you a teacher? Are you a student? Are you a friend? All of these are social roles that we have. Sometimes these social roles come in conflict with who we really are. Sometimes these social roles come in conflict with who we really are. Do you ever try to stereotype people for the fun of it? I know we do it unconsciously. But you may say, think of an accountant. Tell me what an accountant is like. Tell me what a minister is like. Tell me what a psychologist is like. Tell me what a teacher is like. Tell me what an engineer is like. Tell me what a computer programmer is like. Sometimes we have stereotypes of those people, but I think people entering into those fields sometimes think, if I am an accountant, this is what I do. And sometimes the social roles take over and sometimes can influence who you are and how you behave. Again, it's one of these things you'd say, no, I don't change, but the research says you do. that you do. You form different roles and you play up to those roles that are there. Well, a very famous experiment was done called the Zimbardo jail experiments that measured role conflicts. Your book has kind of, in this edition, is going to drop this a little bit, but I think it's an important study. Philip Zimbardo was a psychology professor at Stanford University. And if you go to the big universities, each discipline has their own building. So psychology had their own building. There's a history building, an English building, and a psychology building. And somehow or another, Zimbardo got all this money to convert the basement of the Stanford psychology department into a jail. I mean, a full jail. Bars, individual little toilets that are there, a workout room, a place to have lunch, a courtyard outside with big barbed wire fence all around it. Okay, he actually created a jail. And then he went into his psychology 2301 general psych class, you people, okay, and asked for volunteers, males. That's all he wanted to work with, was just males. So I don't have a lot of guys in here. So you guys, okay, that are in this class, all right, guys. And what he said was, what we're going to do is we're going to do this over, I don't remember if it was spring break or winter break, but I'm going to pay everybody, I think it was like $35 a day or $15 a day. That's not much now, but back then it was a lot of money, okay, to do this experiment. So he got people to volunteer, and then he gave them all a battery of psychological tests to make sure no one, actually gave them the MMPI, remember that one? Okay, make sure no one had psychological disorders. He wanted to make sure they were, I'm assuming this, that you guys are regular guys, okay, just good guys that are there. And then he subdivided the groups up into jailers, okay, and prisoners. And he told them all, come back on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, the experiment is going to begin. So I went, oh, okay. So Zimbardo then got in touch with all the jailers and said, no, we're starting the experiment early. We're going to start it on Friday. I want you guys to come in, and I'm going to give you your uniforms, which were khaki uniforms, sunglasses, billy clubs, handcuffs, okay, that were there. And he says, you people are the jailers. I actually have a van that says Zimbardo's jail on it. And what we're going to do is I have the addresses of all these people. We're going to go arrest them on Saturday. We're going to go find them and arrest them and tell them, sorry, but the experiment is going to start early. So he sends these people out. They go to the dormitory rooms, arrest these guys, and these guys go, no. They go, no, it's starting. Well, I have plans for this weekend. No, you signed the contract. You're starting when Dr. Zimbardo said we're starting. Come with us now. I don't want to come with you now. You got to come with us now. What if I don't want to? Well, just handcuff you and take you anyway. Can you imagine guys in the back that your buddy sitting next to you would turn to this guy there, who turns to this guy, and that guy and says, no, come on with us. Most of the guys complied, okay? They found these people, by the way, out on dates, at dinners and things like that, arrested them right in the restaurant, went to movie theaters, actually pulled people out of movie theaters and arrested them and brought them into jail. So they bring them into the jail. They have them stripped down entirely. Anybody that's been in jail, okay? They then check them for lice and bugs, spray them down and everything, then give them prison garb, okay, uniforms, and assign them a number and put them in a cell. So the experiment now begins. So the jailers, okay, are to be called Mr. Link or Mr. Smith or Mr. Gonzalez, or whatever your last name is. And if you were a prisoner, you were to be addressed as 1257, whatever your number was, because your number was printed on your little garb that's there. Okay? So the first day goes about, and, you know, they have 3 meals a day. They let them exercise a little bit. Okay, and every once in a while you have some guy say, you know, I really don't like this food. I want something else. So what Zimbardo would do, Zimbardo was the warden, and he says, no, you guys, you're the jailers. Here are the rules. We're going to go over the rules. You eat 3 meals a day. You get an opportunity to exercise. We'll watch a little bit of TV, break the rules. These are the punishments that are there. He says, but you guys, if it's not here, you guys sit down as jailers and determine what the rules should be. So they start to experiment a little bit more. Every once in a while, someone would say, I don't like this food. And the jailers say, well, that's what we have. I don't want this food. I'm not going to eat it. Well, you have to eat it. Well, I don't want to eat it. Well, okay, don't eat it. Well, I want something else. This is not a college dormitory. This is the food you have. You can't have anything else. Well, I won't eat. I don't care if you eat or not. Quit bugging us. What do you mean I'm bugging you? Am I bugging you? Yeah, you're bugging me. Well, maybe you need to be punished. Well, how are you going to punish me? I don't know. Do 10 push-ups. That was their favorite thing. Maybe they were in gym class or something too long in elementary school. Okay? I don't want to do push-ups. Well, you have to. Why? Because I'm the jailer and you're the prisoner. Do 10 push-ups. Well, I don't want to. You better. Well, what are you going to do? Well, if you don't do 10 push-ups, then everybody in here has to do 10 push-ups. Well, I'm not going to do it. All right, everybody get down and give us 10 push-ups because this guy won't do it. Well, you can't make us do that. Yes, I can make us do that. So you start having these little fights. And the jailers are beginning to get a little annoyed because you're supposed to be obeying the rules, and we're the jailers, you're not. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. And they have these films, by the way, and you get on YouTube and watch these films. By the way, there was a movie made of this a couple of years ago, a full-length movie as well. Okay? So there were these college roommates. Okay? They lived together. One was a jailer and one was a prisoner. And in the film, they actually show you the prisoner saying, hey, Bob, what are we having today? What time are we going? Well, I can't tell you anything. I can't tell you what time you're going to eat, what shift you're on. I can't tell you that, 1, 2, 6, 7. What do you mean 1, 2, 6? I'm your buddy. Don't call me that. Look, 1, 2, 6, 7. Quit bugging me. How am I bugging you? I'm just asking you a question. Pulls out his billy club and pokes the guy and says, back off. Quit bugging me. I'm just asking you a question. Look, don't call me 1, 2, 6, 7. Look, he says, I'm the jailer, you're the prisoner, you just shut up. Okay? All right, so these fights start developing, and then the jailers start to decide, these guys aren't listening to us. We're the jailers. I keep saying this, but we're the jailers. This is our role. We're the jailers, you're not. Okay? What are we going to do about these guys if they don't start listening? We're making them do push-ups and sit-ups. We took away their privilege for meals the other day. No one ate the other day. We've taken away, they can't go work out. After a while, what are we going to do next? Well, sometimes people just need to be taught a lesson. Like that guy over there, 175, he's the instigator. Maybe we need to teach him a lesson. Well, what do you mean teach him a lesson? Maybe we need to beat the crap out of him. Then maybe he'll listen. And they went and did that. You listen to what I'm saying? Nice guys. Guys, freshman college students that are there. And they did that. And I can tell you all kinds of other stories, but I forget the number of days the study was supposed to go on. Let's just say it was supposed to go on for 10. It only went on for like 3 or 4 days. It broke down. It broke down in fights and arguments and abuse. Isn't that crazy? Nice guys like you guys. All of a sudden put in a situation like that. What happened? According to Zimbardo, roles took over. I'm the jailer, and I'm more important than you are. People kind of forget that, it was just randomly assigned, right? And you're a prisoner. You're behind behind those bars. I'm out here. I'm Mr. Link. You're 12767. You're a nothing, okay? I'm more important than you are. I have to make the rules, and you people have to follow them. So what are we going to do? Well, maybe we need to take the rules into our own consideration, okay, and punish you people for doing this stuff. Wild stuff that went on here. 2, we find that people who begin to feel full of themselves, feel like they have more status than other people, become more entitled, and actually believe they're the jailer because they're more important than other people. I make more money than you do, therefore I'm more important than you are. No, I didn't say that. Okay? But don't sometimes people get into that role that's there, that status that's there? There's a role that's there. What began to happen, we began to have norms being played out for the jailers. If you're a jailer, this is what jailers do. This is normal behavior for jailers. By the way, there were some jailers who went, no, I'm not going to go hit somebody. This is a stupid college experiment. That's all it is. Or just because someone doesn't want to eat, so they don't eat. Well, the jailers then said to them, well, are you with us or against us? What's the deal here? Okay, maybe we should arrest you and throw you in there. And what people began to happen is that they began to just go along with it. I don't want to be in there, so I'll just kind of go along with it. If any of you know anything about wars and military and social groups and gangs, and what happens sometimes is that you don't want to get hurt, you don't want to be punished, so you just go along with things. Conformity. Sometimes we go along with things. We get into our roles. And then we begin to attribute certain traits to those people. Those prisoners are nothing but lazy, complaining people. That's who they are. Look at them. They just lay around all day. They don't do anything else. They just get bored. They're nothing. Look what we do. We have an outside life. We have fun. We do different things. But look at those prisoners. All prisoners are that way. We're talking 3 or 4 days here. All of a sudden, people started attributing certain traits. It's called what? Stereotypes? Look at those people. They're that way. All this happens so quickly. What do you think? If you were a jailer, would you do that? Did you know that a lot of the prisoners started getting really depressed because they're locked up behind bars and had to take orders? It's as if they began to lose all hope. Remember that study on learned hopelessness? That was there. Philip Zimbardo got sued in this study from the people who were the prisoners because that was unfair what he did to them and hurt them. When you do research like this, you're supposed to go through a board, of an ethical board, and they're supposed to make sure that no one who participates in studies like this will be hurt in any way. Well, Zimbardo did this. No one knew that this would happen, okay? But these guys were depressed. You think those 2 roommates were still roommates after this? No, there was all kinds of problems and issues that went on with this, okay? But does it indicate that we have a darker side, that maybe sometimes our roles take over? And you sit here and you go, no, I wouldn't do this. Sometimes you do. Hey, you and your best friend just got jobs selling shoes at the Galleria, okay? And you have this boss of yours, your assistant manager, who's kind of lackadaisical. He really not very forceful. And you're supposed to have 30 minutes for lunch. You go off for 30 minutes for lunch. You come back in 35. He doesn't say anything. Next day you come back in 40. He doesn't say anything. Next day you come back in 50 minutes. He doesn't say anything. Pretty soon you're taking an hour off for lunch and he doesn't say anything. That manager, assistant manager, gets fired. Who gets to be the new manager? Your best friend. They appoint him as the new manager. He comes in the next day dressed in a tie. And you go, whoa, dude. you got a tie on. Yeah, well, I'm the assistant manager. What? Assistant manager? You're assistant manager? Well, what the hell? Let's go to lunch. 30 minutes goes by. He says, 25 minutes. We need to get back. We need to be back 30 minutes. 30 minutes is for lunch. And you go, what do you mean? We've been taking an hour. What's the big thing? He says, no, I'm the assistant manager. We need to get back. Well, what are you talking about? What's 35, 40 minutes? We always used to do this. No, we need to get back. Well, Mr. Assistant Manager, all of a sudden, you're taking over things, aren't you? Yeah, well, I'm the assistant manager. Sometimes our roles, we start, playing up into the roles. So you're going to get married, are you? And you have this partner of yours who's wonderful and great and treats you equal and everything is wonderful and great. Once you get married, sometimes people say, well, I'm a husband now, or I'm a wife now. And this is what a husband does, and begins to attribute certain traits, plays the role of a husband. And then once you have children, then all of a sudden that husband now says, but I'm the dad, and dads rule. Okay, so what happens is dads get to tell everybody what to do, because that's what my dad did, and all of a sudden the role overcomes who they may be. Moms, dads, No? I know this is not going to happen to you people. Not whatsoever, but sometimes that happens. We just assume the roles, and we begin attributing traits to those people. Stereotypes are based on attribution theory. We attribute certain traits. We say those people are that way, and then we act accordingly towards those people. There's a whole bunch of research that talks about almost a reverse discrimination, where people begin to think, oh, if I'm a woman, I'm not going to be good at math or science. Or my ethnic group is not good at school, or this and that. And once people start believing that attribution, then they act that way. That's ridiculous, isn't it? You see that happening quite a bit. Did you ever hear of another study called the Beautiful Girl study? It's an interesting study that's done. They take the same person, a girl, female, dress her all up, make her look real fine, send her out for a job interview. Okay? Goes on the job interview, they get her back again, stress her down, send her back out on the job interview again. Same interviewer, doesn't look the same that's there, basically a similar resume with experience, education. Who gets the job first? Over and over and over again. The pretty girl gets the job over and over again. And it doesn't matter if it's a male or female hiring. What winds up happening when you interview the people doing the hiring, you say, why'd you choose her over her? They'll say, well, because of their educational experience is much better, because of their experience, da, da, da. And when you really push them, because they're the same thing, what they wind up saying is, I think she's smarter, more confident, and will do a better job. Why? Because sometimes people believe people who are attractive have certain traits. We attribute certain traits to them that may not be true. People are rich are this way. People are poor are this way. All right? And we begin to attribute traits to it. It's not fair, okay? But that's a part of social psych that says this does work. And it's sad, but it does work. So at one point, Zimbardo interpreted the results of his simulated prison study as an indication of the what? Powerful influence of roles on people, tendency to show compassion to people in need, weakness of social pressure in some situations, tendency to displace aggression. Again, I want to emphasize there's a lot of power in social roles. Someday you may become a teacher, you may become a nurse, you may become a respiratory therapist, you may become an accountant. And what winds up happening when you're with these people 8 or 10 hours a day, there becomes a norm. This is how we act. And before you know it, very subtly, like the boiled frog syndrome, slow, gradual change, you become more and more like those people. More and more like that, even though you don't want to. All right, y'all get the answer to this one? Everybody get their choices in? There we go. All right, 98% of you are so smart. Sure, the powerful influence of roles on people. I like displace aggression because it does sound like they're doing that, but the Zimbardo study was really about influences on people. All right, let's go to another study about social influence. Who influences you? No one. I'm my own person. No, you're not. Sorry. Social psych says there are a lot of influences in how you think, feel, and behave. This is basically the conformity studies about whether or not people conform to the groups that they're in and do things through group pressure, group sanctions, and on. The first thing I want to talk about is a very famous study called the Ash experiments, and then I'll go back and talk about mere presence and conformity. Well, let me talk with you about the Ash experiments, again, another famous study. So I'll come back to this. I know you're all writing furiously here, but I'll come back to this. Let me just show you the Ash studies. A very simple study. All right, what he did was have 2, 4, 6 people. These 6 people are part of the study. Okay? 5 of the 6 people are working with me, and I'm telling them what to do. And the 6th person, let's say that's you, You're always in front of me, so you're always that person. Okay? Doesn't know what's going on. So what I tell this person to do in the beginning is what I want you to do, I tell everybody, what I want you to do is look at these lines, and I want you to tell me, I'm going to show you different lines and different slides on this. I want you to tell me which one of these three lines looks similar to this line over here. Is it 1, 2, or 3? So I tell this person, the first 5 of them tell the absolute truth. And then on the 6th one, lie. And then when she lies, you go along with whatever she said, you go along with it. You're the subjects, you don't know what's going on, you go along, you go along. Because what I want to show is I want to see what happens to her is everybody else, okay, sees something different. Will she eventually conform and see the same thing? So we go through it. Which one looks similar? So you say number 2. So we say 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And we go about 5 or 6 of these different ones, okay, which sound the truth. Then I throw one up like this, and all of a sudden she says 3, 3, 3. Now in the beginning, the subject is going to look around and go 2. And then I instruct everybody else, once she says 2, just to kind of look at her and go, oh. And then it's like 3, 3. And we go through a series of these, and what the Ash experiment said is that after a while, she starts breaking down, okay, and going along with everybody else. Now, I know you're a very strong individual and stuff. You wouldn't do that. But you know what? Most people conform. Like 80 to 90% of the people conformed, eventually went along with it. And then you ask them, well, why did you say that? And some of them would say things like, one, well, you know, I got tired of being the different one, so I just went along with it. But to me, what was really kind of scary and odd is that sometimes this person really began to believe that number 3 was the same size as A. They actually changed their perception to go along with it. You people don't do that, though, do you? When you're out with your friends and you go see a movie, you want to go see some comedy with 5 other friends or 3 other friends. Doesn't matter what the number is. The bigger the number, the more influence there is on you, though. Let's say with 5 friends, and someone says to you as you walk out of the movie, what'd you think? And you went, that was a stupid movie. I didn't even see why people were laughing. That was really bad. Then all your friends go, oh, no way! That was one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I don't know what's with you. You don't have a sense of humor. That was great. And then you go out to dinner, and they're all reenacting parts of it. You know, these people who memorized the lines in it, and they're yucking it up, and you're going, oh, and you're getting left out, you're getting left out, and you're getting left out. Pretty soon you say, well, you know, that one scene was funny. And then another scene was funny. And before you know it, yeah, it was a pretty good movie. No? That happens a lot. It's called conformity. Okay? Why do we conform? Because we don't want to get left out. We want to be like other people. It takes an incredible person not to give in to when the majority of the people have established a norm, okay? It's hard to fight that norm that's there, particularly if they begin to isolate you, because we don't want to be isolated. Sometimes groups provoke what's called group sanctions. We're going to a movie. Why invite you anymore if you don't think the movies are funny? Well, I want to go too. Was that movie funny? Yeah, it was funny. Okay, you come now. Now, I'm exaggerating, aren't I? But sometimes conformity begins to work that way. Don't you remember when you were in high school? High school had all kinds of conformity. Go along with the group. And by the way, it still does nowadays. We go along with groups. We even live in neighborhoods sometimes, if you get a choice of neighborhoods, where people may conform with what you're into, what you're about. Your friends are that way. Okay? If one of your friends is always arguing with you after a while, somebody's going to say, well, let's not ask them to go. All they do is cause conflict in the group. That's a group sanction that's there. What else can influence you? The mere presence of somebody, okay, influence you. The mere presence of somebody can influence you. What does that mean? That means if somebody's in your group who you talk about a lot and they show up, you're not going to talk about them anymore because the near presence won't do that. The mere presence will mean that you can't stereotype that person when they're around. That's there. The mere presence also means that you may not like Obama. You may not like him at all whatsoever. I hate that man. Okay? But if he walks in this room, okay, and he stands in front of you, the mere presence of him sometimes will decrease your dislike for him. Okay? Well, no, not me. I really dislike him. Well, the mere presence of him sometimes will reduce your dislike that's there. Because he's a very charming person, by the way. Okay? If you see him live and everything. Okay? Charming presidents. Bush was okay. He wasn't that charming. Okay? Bill Clinton was extremely charming. Okay? Ronald Reagan was incredible. And when these people walk into a room, because who they are, people sit up and go, wow. Have you ever seen a celebrity somewhere? Wow, look who it is. Wow, it's Tony Romo. Wow. There he is. The mere presence of somebody sometimes changes your views and attitudes and everything else. Individuals may have influence on you as well. Your ministers may have more influence on you. Your teachers might. Someone who you're impressed with can have an influence on you and get you to conform as well. No? Yes? Think about that. All right, I did all of those. Tell me something. Most people in the USA, United States of America, obey people in authority? What do you think? Do we obey people in authority? Answer that question now. Okay. Got it? What do you think? No one likes to say, I strongly agree. Most of us agree. Some are neutral about that. But most of you say, yeah, we kind of agree. Well, do you obey people in authority? I'm leading to the next study. Okay, do you obey people in authority? Yeah, 72% of us do. We kind of have to, don't we, to get along in the world, right? You lose your job, okay? I'll fail you if you don't. No, I don't have that much authority. All right, let's talk about this study. This is called the Milgram Obedience Studies. Now, the ones about social role and conformity, some of you go, nah, I wouldn't do that. This is one study where I would say 90% of you are going to go, no, I would never do this. But the research says you probably would do it. This is the Milgram Obedience Studies done in the early 1960s. He did it quite a few years in a long time ago, right? 1960s? He did this as a reaction to the Nuremberg trials. Did you get that far in American history, where you studied after World War II? We put a lot of the Nazis on trial in Nuremberg for crimes against society. Yeah? How could you be a guard at that prison camp and exterminate all those people? How could you have done that? Okay? So we were putting these people on trial, condemned them to life in prison, killed them in some cases. Okay, and what the Allies were saying was, the English, the French, and the U.S., and the Soviets were saying, you know, what made those people do that? How can you work in a concentration camp and knowingly gas people? How can you knowingly, kill off those people? How can you knowingly allow your next door neighbor to be taken away from you when they were your neighbor just because they're Jewish? You let that happen. How could your people do that stuff? So a lot of people were saying the reason why the Germans did that is because they were Germans. Okay? Why? Because they were raised in a culture to obey. Okay? They conformed, they obeyed, those were the roles they were doing. It was part of their culture, a downside of their culture that did that. Well, Milgram was thinking about this. He went, well, I don't know. He says, I wonder if the people in the U.S. or France or England would do something similar like this. Would they just obey and maybe kill somebody when someone tells you to do it? So Milgram designed this study. Now you're going to have to really pay attention to understand how this study went. This study was done, okay, at Yale University, okay, where Milgram was at. And what he had was a study he advertised as an educational study where we're going to teach people to learn and how to increase your memory. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a teacher and I won't do you this time, and a learner, okay? And what we're going to do is that we're going to have one of you be the teacher, one be the learner. How about you be the teacher? Is that okay? Good. Now, you're going to be the learner, okay? And she agreed to be a learner right away. And the teacher, by the way, let's reverse this, okay? You're going to be the teacher, and you're going to be the learner, okay? And Milgram then would get with the learner and say, we're in this together, okay? This is what's going to happen, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to make believe that I'm going to put electrodes on your fingers, okay? And every time there's an answer is wrong, she's going to think that she's going to be giving you an electrical shock, but she's really not, so don't worry about it, okay? And I have a little script for you. Every time she does something, you're to say this. Okay? Okay. You say okay. Good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a big wall in between the two of us. So you can't see her because you're the teacher. So she sits over here, you sit over there. And on the panel that's in front of this person, okay, there are toggle switches. You know what a toggle switch is? It's a little switch that's there that you turn up and down. So throughout this board, okay, there's these toggle switches. And on the toggle switch, beneath each toggle switch, it tells you how many voltage. It says 15 volts. It goes up by 30s, 15s. 15, 30, 45, 60, all the way to 450 volts. Okay? Then underneath that, it has little signs like mild and moderate and strong and very strong. Then as you get to the end, it actually says dangerous, severe shock, 3 X's, and I don't mean adult movies, I mean death, okay? Can cause death at the end of it. Says it right there, okay? So then I take the teacher with me, we go behind this, and we introduce the person to the learner. This is the learner. We're not giving names, but this is the learner. You're the teacher. What I want you to do now is put the electrode on her finger, come back over here. So what we're going to do, we're going to give her a series of words. And if she ever, matching words, okay? And if she gets one of these matching words wrong, you give her a shock, okay? And every time she gets ones wrong, then we go to increase the shock that's there, okay? Okay, good. All right, now sit here. Okay, here we go. Here are the words. And you ask the words, and she gets one wrong. Okay, she gets them right, gets it right, gets it right, gets it right, gets ones wrong. Okay? What does she do? 15 volts. All right. And it makes a noise. It goes, 15 volts. All right. Good. All right, you keep going. She gets another one wrong. Okay? 30 volts. Okay. More. Gets another one wrong. 45 volts. Okay. Go along a little bit more. Another one wrong. 60 volts. Okay? Gets another one wrong. 75 volts. Gets another one wrong. 90 volts. And at 90 volts, I instructed the learner to go, oh, that one hurt. Okay? What happens the most, and what would you do? Right? You would go, oh, I hurt her. Okay? Well, that's what happens. You hear this, ouch! Most of the teachers go, oh, I hurt her. Milgram, who's sitting right there, then says, yes, sometimes when you learn, people get hurt sometimes. But, that's all part of the experiment. Continue. Continue? Yeah, continue. All right. What was I at, 90? All right. Wrong again, 105. Oh, that one really hurt. She said that hurt. Well, sometimes those things hurt. Keep going. All right. Are you ready? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Now the person's getting more wrong. Not only are they just going, ouch, now they're going, ow, ow, oh, wow, that one really hurt. You know something about electricity or anything? I stick my finger in there, that's what, 110? I know there's amperage and all kinds of other things. That shocks me a little bit, doesn't it? That hurts. You know what a 220 volt is? That's your dryers and stuff. That could kill you sometimes, okay? So, but we're going along. You see this stuff right here? Victim screams, victim pounds the wall in between. You hear the victim going, oh no, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. No. The teacher sitting there going, I'm really hurting them. That's what happens when you learn. It's part of the experiment. Keep going. Well, I don't know if I want to. You agreed to keep going. Keep going. Well, I don't think this is right. It's not up to you to decide what's right or wrong. I'm telling you, keep going. Well, okay, but I don't think this is right. All right, learner, here's another question for you. Learner, what's the answer? Okay, no, you're wrong again. She didn't scream that time. Maybe we heard her. Keep going. Well, maybe we heard, maybe we need to check. It's part of the experiment. Keep going. You're quiet now, aren't you? You're not laughing. Okay? Quiet now. All right, learner, here's another question. She's not answering. Consider no answer a wrong answer. Keep going. Ugh. 450 volts. Would you do it? Would you get up and stop and walk out? Or would you nail that learner to 450 volts? 2/3 of the people who participated in this study went right to 450 volts. Why? When they stopped the study and said, by the way, you really didn't hurt the person, as a part of the study. Why'd you do it? You know what the answer was? You told me to. Yeah, but the person was screaming and yelling. You didn't know if you said to me that they could be hurt. Yeah, but you said keep going. I didn't tell. I just told you. I didn't make you. Yeah, but you told me. When Milgram printed up the study, the people in the U.S. were furious with him because Milgram said, you know what? Maybe this could happen anywhere. Maybe this could happen in the U.S. as well. Okay? Because people obey. It's not just the German culture. It's part of most of our cultures that are there. Ooh, that's kind of creepy, isn't it? Would you do it? No, you wouldn't do this, right? You would have stopped earlier and walked out. No, what winds up happening sometimes, you don't do it. And people began to criticize Milgram, and they said, well, you know what? You did it at Yale University. Most people assumed you're at Yale University. They wouldn't hurt anybody. Plus, you did it with all white men. Those people obey more. Okay? So Milgram went, oh, okay. So he took his experiment out to Bridgeport, Connecticut. Okay? Then he went to another part of Connecticut. Then he went to New York City. Then he went to Boston. Then he went to the Midwest. Then he went to California. And he tested people from different social, economic groups, different ethnic groups, married, not married, males, females, and he basically got the same type of results. 67%, 2/3 of the people went all the way to the end. Ugh, kind of scary, huh? Okay. Now, Milgram also varied this experiment a little bit. What he would do is he sat there and then he decided, let me leave and just put a phone there and call me. Well, what winds up happening when people have more time to think about things and don't have to just obey, and they pick up the phone, the numbers started diminishing. Some people walked out. When he put 2 people in the room where they had to decide together, the numbers really dropped off because someone said, are we doing right? No, I don't think we're doing right. I think this is wrong. Yeah, me too. And that changed the norms that were there. There's safety in numbers, right? That you can challenge somebody else. That's there. When Milgram put another person in the room who was part of his staff who said, no, Dr. Milgram said we need to do this, we need to do this, the numbers didn't go down, they actually went up. Okay? Because there was somebody else that they had to obey and conform to. Wow, obedience. Now, I might also say, and I hope if you people are critical thinkers, think along with me. When was this done? In the 1960s, right? By the way, this experiment shouldn't be done because what it did was harm people. There were people who were severely depressed thinking about, I'm just like a Nazi. I'm no better than one of the prison guards that were there. Look what I could have done to somebody. Zimbardo, in the other experiment, and Milgram had to pay a lot of money for therapy for those people because they put them in harm. Okay? They put them in harm. But there have been other studies done over the years where there's a tendency that people obey. Now, I don't know. We seem to live in a culture now where I don't know if we trust officials. Okay? This was the 60s. This was before Watergate, okay, where we may have thought about, our politicians, our presidents, authority figures are right. Then maybe we might have had a lot of blind faith in people. I hope we don't have that anymore. I hope we don't say, my country right or wrong, my teacher right or wrong. No, say that one. You don't say, my minister right or wrong. You don't say this right or wrong. We ask questions about what's right or wrong, and we don't have absolute blind faith. But sometimes we do. Sometimes we do because we may trust other people that's there. Sometimes we don't have the confidence within ourselves to challenge people. Do you ever think about Martin Luther King and some of the other civil rights leaders, how incredible those people really were to stand up to what? Authority, conformity, social roles, okay, and put their life on the line to change these things, whether it be whatever liberation movements you want to talk about. How incredible those people must have been. They defied all this stuff that's there. Blind faith. Let me put another twist to this. You're barely making it. Barely getting enough money for you and your family to pay your rent, to pay your bills, to get your food. And your boss says to you, you know what? We're not doing real well in this company anymore. I tell you what, from now on, what we're going to do, instead of putting 15 peanuts in each bag and sell it that way, we need to reduce those peanuts to 10 per bag, okay? Don't tell anybody we're doing this, okay? And we're going to charge more for it. Well, I don't think that's right. You want a job? Well, I don't think it's right. You want a job? I don't think that's right. Your choice. You want a job? Don't you want your job? Sometimes people go along with things, particularly if everybody else in the place is doing it. Cheat the IRS, right? They deserve it. How many people do that? Because everybody else does it. We go along with authority. All right, this is what I was telling you before. The numbers go down, okay? The more Milgram goes away. All right, 1 point. Stanley Milgram's experiment, in which a teacher gave shocks to a learner, was designed to test the limits of... It just went blank. Why did that close? Okay, I'm not going to mess with this because last time this happened, I messed with it and I lost all my statistics. So I'll give everybody credit for this one, all right? Stanley Milgram's experiment, which a teacher gives shocks to a learner, was designed to test the limits of expert power, coercive power, obedience, or conformity to a majority. How many would say 3? Oh, you people are so smart. Right, the answer is 3, right? It was about obedience. All about obedience. Do you people obey? Do you people conform? Do you people succumb to social roles? I don't know, huh? Gosh, we've been together for 15 weeks now. You people are sitting here like a bunch of lumps today. Whoa, what's going on? That really kind of pisses me off about things. So you know what? Did you realize that in your syllabus, there's one part of your syllabus that says the instructor reserves the right to change anything that he wants to? This is what we're going to do. We're going to throw away all your grades, and I'm going to give you a final, a comprehensive final that's 500 questions. Okay? And if you don't get a 90% on it, you're going to fail. That's it. I'm done for today. Leave. I can't do that with a straight face, right? That's a joke, by the way, if anybody took that seriously, okay? Some of you are getting a little worried, aren't you? Actually, those of you who aren't doing it very well went, yeah, another chance. What if I was serious? What would you do? All I heard was, what would you do? You'd what? Riot? It's just you. How are you? So he stands up and says no, and I say, you fail. Who's next? No one else stands up. You're nailed. Well, what would happen? No one else would, because someone got consequences. You fail somebody, yeah? Do you know what? You know who Saddam Hussein was? Right, you know him, right? When he took over the legislature, somebody stood up, like you might, and said, no way. He went, oh yeah, boom. He took out a gun and shot him. And said, well, anybody else? People conformed pretty well, didn't they? All right, so what would you do? What would you do? You'd take the test. I bet you most of you would just go take the test. Why? Because of authority. I'm the man, okay? I got the authority. 2, social roles. I'm the teacher, you're the student, okay? I have more power over you, okay? You may just say, well, I guess we have to do it, okay? 2, if most of you said, well, okay, I guess we'll just do it, that would be what? Conformity. That's there. Now, what would be fun, I did this once years ago when I was able to keep a straight face. I did have people like you would say, no way, but I also had other people in the audience who I said, if someone stands up and says no, I want you to say, well, if Dr. Link said we have to do this, then we have to do this. And I had 1 or 2 or 3 people stand up and say that, and what wound up happening, that became what? The conformity that's there. Now, what would you do? Go to the dean. Good for you. Go to the dean. But in actuality, you know, I have power in here. But I hope you would go to the dean.
Doesn't it affect you if you have majority of your classes fail? Doesn't that look bad on you?
Yeah, it does. But if I was at a university, I might have tenure. We don't have tenure here, and they can't fail me with tenure. But yeah, that would look bad on me. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Because I said you would use the power dimension. Now, hear what she said. She said, you know, I have power. I'm just not going to give it up to somebody else. What else can I do? I bet you would do that too, right? And I hope what you would do is talk to other people and have other people go with you, not just by yourself. And then what happens if most of you go with you, then we have a new form of conformity, right? You all go along with her, staying behind her. Yeah, if she gets shot, that's okay. Isn't this what goes on in life? Right? Conformity is powerful. Obedience is powerful. Social roads are very, very powerful. Once again, if you weren't listening to me, that was a joke, okay? We're not going to do that. I just wanted to make a point. Still with me? All right. Let's do something else. Here's something else that's sad. It's called compliance. People go along with what's asked of them. And you can manipulate people into getting you to do things. I want to show you manipulation techniques called compliance techniques. I don't want to teach you to be a manipulator. I just want to show you how these techniques work, okay, in case they're done to you. All right, they're called compliance techniques. Now, your book still use these old terms. By the way, these are also called sales terms. When you sell things to people, you're taught how to do this stuff. By the way, this is based on most of us are nice people. We're good people. We'll do things for other people, don't we? I hope we're this way. There's a certain percentage out in that world that aren't very good people, and they're the one that screws it up for most of us. But most of us are good. If you ask me to do something for you, I'd probably go, okay, I'll do it for you. Okay? What do you need to do? You need to ride home? Yeah, I'll give you a ride home. Come on. Okay? I'll do things for you. The classic study done with this was done inside a phone booth. Do you remember what a phone booth used to look like? I haven't seen a phone booth in years, okay? You know what a phone booth is? Got a phone in there, okay? That's there. Back in the days before cell phones. This whole study was done where people would go in and get on the phone, okay? Then what happened is that the person during the research would come up and knock on the phone booth, okay, as the person was on the phone, and say, excuse me, but how long are you going to be? Well, I'm not going to be that long. Well, I need to use the phone. Well, okay, just let me finish this. Okay. What was it? A minute later, boom, boom, boom. Sorry to bother you again. It's okay. You can stay on as long as you want. But I think I may have left my wallet in the phone booth. Did you see my wallet in here? No, I didn't see your wallet in here. Okay. Back on the phone. Bang, bang, bang. You sure you didn't see my wallet in here? No, I didn't see your wallet in here. Well, could you step out a little bit? I want to just see if my wallet is in here. What would you do? Most people would step out. You complain, okay, look. Okay, there's no wallet in there. Okay, right. Now the whole thing was, the study was, how far can you push someone before they say no? Knock. Are you sure my wallet's in here? You just looked. Well, maybe you have the wallet on you. Could you let me look in your purse. Could you take stuff out of your pockets, make sure my wallet isn't there? It's a bright orange. Look, I don't have it. Look at my purse. Nothing in there. Okay. Knock. Could you get off the phone? I want to call the police and have you arrested because I think you stole my wallet. Did you know that people actually stood there and actually let the person call the police? At what point would you say, get the hell out of here? Well, at some point you would. But you know what? Most of us are kind of nice and we go along with other people. That's the basis to this stuff. One is called foot in the door effect. A long time ago, there used to be door-to-door salespeople. On Cyber Monday, that's probably, no one believes this, right? But people used to come selling knives. Can you imagine selling knives door to door? Okay, encyclopedia, Bibles was a big thing people used to sell. So what these salesperson people were taught was that when you knock on the door and someone opens the door, you put your foot in between the door and the threshold so they can't shut the door and you get a captured audience. Can you imagine doing that nowadays? You'd get shot if you did something like that, right? But that's what they used to do. It's called foot in the door effect. Get somebody into your store, get somebody listening to you, and people will eventually comply. Did you hear what I said? If you want somebody to do something, get them to say yes for something small, and then eventually build up to what you really want. Foot in the door effect. I'm going out of town this holiday. So I don't know my neighbor very well, but I know him well enough to go ask him for a favor. Okay? So I knock on their door and I say, hey, I'm Steve. I'm across the street. We don't talk that much, but I was just wondering if you'd do me a favor. Okay? Would you do me a favor? Well, what is it? Well, I just want to make sure that I can have my lights on automatically. They'll come out of my house at night. I have it set on a timer, but I just want to make sure that if you see a moving truck pull up in front of my house, that it's not me, somebody's stealing stuff. Could you just call the police or call me? I'll give you my number if that happens. Now, would you say no to that? Most of us would say yes to that. The door in the face effect, in the foot in the door effect, basically says if you get someone to say yes once, it's going to be easier and easier for them to say yes along the way. So he says yes. I go, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. By the way, while you're looking at our house, our mailboxes are together. I canceled the mail. Could you just check in my mailbox to see if there's any mail there or not? Yeah, I can do that. Well, thanks. I really appreciate that. By the way, I usually have a newspaper delivered to my house, but I have it canceled. Just make sure it's not there. If it is, could you just pick it up for me? Yeah, okay. Gee, thanks. You're a really good neighbor. My wife told me that maybe you wouldn't do this, but you're really a good guy. Oh, good. I really appreciate what you're doing here. And by the way, if my daughter, have you seen my daughter? She sold you cookies and stuff for Girl Scouts and stuff. She has a parakeet, and I know this is going to be a big thing, but if I gave you the key to my house, well, would you go in and feed the bird, like every other day? I know some of you wouldn't give your key to anybody's house, but I trust this guy. And he goes, you want me to feed? Yeah, it's for my daughter. My cute little daughter. All right, I'll do that. Yeah, all right, yeah, twice a week. Yeah, oh, God, you're such a good neighbor. Yeah, my son has a cat. Most people don't say no. I mean, pretty soon I have him walking my dog and all kinds of stuff. And then when he does say no, you go, God, I'm an obnoxious human being, aren't I? That's manipulative techniques. If you get somebody to say yes for one thing, come on, those of you who are in clothing sales. Someone comes in to buy a suit, so you sell them a suit, and then there's a beautiful suit. Look how it looks on you. You know what? This color shirt really looks good with that suit. Looks good with your skin color, too. It looks really good. Oh, yeah, I guess I can buy that. Oh, how about a nice tie? How about underwear to match? How about a pair of shoes? Aren't you told that once someone says yes, you got them in the store, you keep selling them other stuff? The opposite of this is called during the face effect. What this is, ask for the outrageous, they say no, then come back. My car broke down, and my wife had to give me a ride, and you told me that you live in Carrollton. Okay, you said you live in North Carrollton. I was just wondering if you can give me a ride to Gainesville. Gainesville? I didn't know where that is. Well, it's north of Denton. Ah, that's too far. Yeah, that is too far for you to drive me. I am so sorry I asked for you to drive all the way to Gainesville. I know you live in North Carrollton. That's ridiculous. Could you at least give me a lift to Denton, though? Denton's kind of far. I know it's not Gainesville. Okay, as long as it's not Gainesville. Okay, good. I just wanted to ride to Denton. And I knew if I said Louisville or Carrollton, you wouldn't do it because Denton's too far. So I asked for what? The outrageous one. You said no, then I pulled back. And most people comply. Door in the face effect. Ask for something outrageous, slam the door in my face, say no, come back and say, I'm sorry. Isn't this hideous? Okay? But this stuff works. It's called compliance. People use this on us all the time. Hey, we just finished Thanksgiving weekend, right? Those poor people, some of you had to work on Thanksgiving. I think that's ridiculous. Okay, or Black Friday and whatever they call Saturday and Cyber Monday and who knows what Tuesday is. Okay, but they're trying to get you in there. Some try to get you in there in what's called the lowball technique. All right? Any of you wait in line at Best Buy for 4 days before you got in to buy 4 of those Xboxes, okay, that were there? Or how about, come on into our store. We've got a 43-inch HD TV on sale for $189. Come on in. You rush in because it's a lowball technique. You say, where's the TV? And they say, oh, we sold all those. But here's this one over here. Or, oh, it's right over here. Take a look at this one. It's full of static. It's ugly looking. Okay? And you go, I don't want that. Oh, yeah, it's $189. But while you're here, let me show you what I have over here. A lot of stores use lowball techniques to get you in because they know you made a commitment to come into the store to go shopping, and once you're in the store, you're going to buy something. We don't have that $189 TV anymore, but we'll have something else for you to buy. Lowball techniques. Does this work?